Times when you want to buy water, especially sachet water, you tend to see that some companies sell their water very cheap. Meanwhile, some companies, the water seems to be expensive or a little bit higher than the other ones which are cheap. Now, there's a reason for this, and that's what I'll be sharing with you in this video. Several companies, most of those companies that produce cheap water are mostly not following the standard operating procedure which is required for a water manufacturer. Now, for you to have a water company in Nigeria, there are several things that you need to do, which I have been listing out and actually shared information about them in my videos. That's things like company registration, the one you do with NAFDAC, testing your water quality, buying the right equipment, and so on, and even production practices and the quality of some of those things that are needed in the factory. So by the time you are not following the standard operating procedure, you will notice that the water which you'll be producing is substandard. And a lot of these substandard companies are actually flooding the market these days. And people, because they are not familiar with some of all these things, they will say, it's not just water we are drinking. Some people will say it's not ordinary water from the ground that they are just packaging. They tend to buy those water. And by the time they start coming up with some health issues and they start to, get some sicknesses from this water, they might not even actually know that it's because of the water that they are consuming. There are cases whereby I've actually gone to some places, I've drank the water, and I felt like rashes coming out from my body. There are places again that you even bath with the water, that you will see the water is very hard. Your skin will start drying up. Like even the water we have around here, it's actually hard water. So there are times when if you keep the water, you might even notice, if you keep it for a very long period of time, you might notice like some debris at the base of the rubber. That's before treatment. So there are certain things that companies need to do in order to sell standard quality water. And I can assure you that if these companies that are selling cheap water for you, any company selling less than 200 naira or selling water less than 300 naira, even 300 naira safe, it's just because some of the businesses are trying to, maintain some of their customers. But if you want to do the proper thing, no company is supposed to be selling water to you at 250, 300 safe for a bag of water. If you are buying water at 250, just know for sure that the water you are getting is substandard. So there are some things I've listed out here which I know these companies that are selling cheap water are not doing or they are actually doing to be able to sell that cheap water to you. So the number one thing here that I've written is they don't replace their filters. So there are certain filters which are within the factory, right from the raw water point to the semi-treated side to the treated side, and even down to the machines you see behind me here. So if the sachet water company that is selling you water at 250 naira, they are not replacing their filters, they will be able to sell for you at that 250, because for you to get that clean standard water, you need to be replacing this filter. And if these companies were actually replacing their filters, they will factor in this cost when it comes to pricing their product. So for the fact that they are not factoring in some of this cost in their product, it means they are not doing justice and they are not doing the standard when it comes to the production of their water and what they sell. So just be sure that 250 naira water you are buying per bag, they are not replacing the filter. The next again is they are not backwashing and flushing their equipment. So over time, or before you even produce water every day, you need to do backwashing. Now if you have standard equipment, the backwashing helps with the quality of the water that's packaged. And by backwashing the equipment and also doing occasional flushing, there are certain debris and certain contaminants that will be flushed out of the water. And doing these things frequently, especially the flushing aspect where you will flush your equipment, the engineers will come and do like a routine maintenance for treatment equipment. It actually costs some money too. Now, if a company is not factoring in that cost, that's when they'll be able to sell water for you at 200 naira or 250. So just be sure that cheap water you are getting, they don't do their backwashing and flushing regularly. That's why you are getting the water cheap. The next is unclean environment. Now, in terms of unclean environment, there are certain things they are supposed to do. there's supposed to be fumigation. Fumigation is done, I think, every 2 to 3 months. If possible, sef, in some areas, they'll recommend you do it every month. But if you factor in the cost of fumigation, keeping the environment clean, doing all those routine cleanups where maybe you clear the grasses around, cleaning the drainages and all, it actually helps in protecting the environment and the quality of the water that comes out. So if a factory is not factoring in this cost and they are selling their product to you at a cheap rate, that means the water you are getting is also coming from an unclean source. The next thing again is the raw materials which they are using. For some of these companies that sell you water cheap, if you notice, the nylon is very, very light. Now, according to NAFDAC standard, the nylon is supposed to be around 36 microns, that's the thickness. Now, some companies, because they don't want to produce the standard, they actually go for cheaper ones that are very light. So, if you get water and it's very, very light, just know that they are not giving you the standard, because that lightness can easily get contaminated by sun rays, by contaminant, pollutants, and every other thing that can actually affect the water. So if you are getting water from a cheap supplier like this, just know that they are not doing the standard. Don't forget to also like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel, as it encourages me to produce more videos. Don't forget to like the video. Now, the next thing here is insufficient or no proper water treatment equipment. Now, just like I mentioned earlier about the filters, if a company is not using standard water treatment equipment, that's like the reverse osmosis machine, they don't have complete filters, they don't have UV light, they don't have ozone generator, they won't factor in all these costs when it comes to pricing their product, because they are not giving you the standard. So if you are getting water from a supplier that is selling for you 250 naira, selling for you 200 naira, just know that they are not using the standard equipment, world standard equipment that is required for you to get a good, clean drinking water. So by the time you factor in all these costs, you'll notice that a lot of companies are actually trying their best to give standard water to the market. But you still have some companies who are not producing the standard. Some companies say they just have a borehole, they have a tank, and they have a sealing machine. They don't even have any filter to filter out, some of the hard water, some of the contaminants, or anything that might come into the water. Some companies, if you see their filters, that's the ones that have filters. Some might have that filter for over 3 years. You see it with algae inside. In short, I think any water that goes through that filter is better you just even drink it as raw water than for it to go through that filter. But we have a lot of companies who operate like that. Although NAFDAC and other relevant agencies, even with the association, are trying their best to see that a lot of these factories that are giving substandard products are eliminated. But due to human nature, we still have some of them who are popping up, or we have some of them who are in some hidden locations that are still flooding the market with their substandard and cheap water. So all in all, for you to get the best water, try and look for companies that actually follow the normal procedure. They have their NAFDAC number, they have all their registration, their factory is actually bringing out clean water. A way which you can observe if the water is good is for you can even do just your own physical analysis. You can turn the water into a cup, leave it for a while, maybe leave it for some days, or turn it into a bottle. And if you perceive any smell from it after some days, you can even leave it up to 2 weeks just to test it. If you perceive any smell within that 2 weeks period, you know that okay, this water is not standard. But like me, self, I don't even need to do all this kind of tests. Just from tasting the water, I will know if it's treated or not. So try and figure out all these things and try to understand where the water is coming from before you actually make the purchase.